television and motion picture star Robert Blake is rich and famous. But in 2003, his good fortune took a turn for the worse when he found his wife, Bonnie Lee Bakley, murdered.
Help! Help! My wife's bleeding! Help!
I knew who killed her right away.
Although the two were newlyweds and had a child together, their relationship was anything but loving.
Bonnie Lee wasn't your great housewife raising a child. She had a past.
After being unsolved for almost a year, the LAPD would finally set their sights on Robert Blake. Cops arrest the actor and charge him with murder.
They wanted to see a celebrity be convicted.
Blake sits in jail for a year without bail, but thanks to his high-priced legal team and a star-worthy PR campaign, he is able to free himself.
They have an enormous advantage because of their celebrity, and certainly the money helps. They control the media.
Robert, are you innocent? Of course I'm innocent.
It takes nearly 3 years and costs millions of dollars, but in the end, Blake gets what he paid for, a not guilty verdict.
There is no doubt in my mind who killed Bonnie Lee Bakley.
And much like the ending of a Hollywood movie, Robert Blake was rich and acquitted. May 4th, 2001. It is a warm spring night in the San Fernando Valley, just a few miles from the bright lights and broken dreams of Hollywood. Emmy Award-winning actor Robert Blake and his new wife, Bonnie Lee Bakley, head to dinner at his favorite neighborhood Italian restaurant, Vitello's, in the Los Angeles suburb of Studio City.
He would have a particular waitress waiting on him all the time. He would ask for her.
Though Blake and Bakley have only been married for a little more than 6 months, they are anything but your typical love-struck newlyweds. He is known for his temper, and she is known amongst friends as a serial wife, having been married at least 9 times before, and that number is rumored to be much higher.
As I recall, Ms. Bakley was alleged to have been married 28 or 29 times.
Thrown together by fate, lust would turn a chance meeting to marriage when Bonnie became pregnant, forcing Blake to marry her.
There were things going on in Bonnie's relationship with Blake. tears were like crocodile tears.
It is 9:40 p.m. The LAPD arrives soon after and finds Bonnie. She has been shot twice and is barely clinging to life. Perhaps because the story involves a famous actor, the press gets there soon after, in time to capture Bonnie being put into an ambulance and rushed to the hospital. She is pronounced dead at 10:15 p.m. The car is cordoned off on the street until forensic experts arrive. The cops canvass the darkened street, but no one heard or saw anything. Blake explains he was away retrieving his gun. Officers immediately confiscate his Smith & Wesson. Soon after, Blake accompanies police for questioning with his entertainment attorney. By now, the media is broadcasting that the wife of actor Robert Blake has been killed. The saga of Who Killed Bonnie Bakley begins just like a film noir whodunit.
I click on the TV, and actor Robert Blake's wife shot, being loaded into the back of the rescue squad. It's terrible. Bonnie was a loving human being, had children.
The investigation would quickly turn to Robert Blake, who had spent a lifetime in front of the camera, amassing a fortune he would need to tap to preserve his freedom. Blake is born as Michael James Gubatasi on September 18, 1933, in Nutley, New Jersey. According to Blake, his dad is a heavy drinker, and both parents abuse young Michael emotionally and physically.
He seemed to be haunted by his childhood, which he described as very abusive and very painful.
He protected himself by putting out a tough character, you know?
Blake's career began as a child actor in Our Gang, one of the best-known comedic serials of the era. By 1950, Blake, now unemployed, has run away from home. He doesn't return to show business until the mid-50s, when he is officially billed as Robert Blake. Fast forward 11 years, and Blake, now married with 2 children, seems destined for the semi-obscurity of character acting, until one film changes the trajectory of his career. He is cast in Truman Capote's In Cold Blood.
He started yelling what a greedy, selfish bastard I was.
And later, as the lead character on TV's Beretta. Blake makes the role of the tough-talking detective a memorable hit on the small screen, and before he knows it, he is holding an Emmy. Hollywood is Robert Blake's playground. He is handsome, famous, and rich, thanks to wise investments and lucrative real estate deals. Like all shows, Beretta eventually comes to an end, and so does Blake's marriage to Sandra Kerr. For the next 22 years, until the night of the murder, Blake works on small roles and becomes a regular on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, but his next big role evades him. Bonnie Lee Bakley also comes from humble beginnings. Born June 7, 1956, in Morristown, New Jersey, Bonnie is sharp, rebellious, ambitious, and completely obsessed with fame and celebrity.
I believe with Bonnie that the celebrity obsession, if you will, came from early childhood with my grandmother. She grew up hearing about these exciting characters. That was just her intrigue.
Bonnie wanted to be involved with and married to a celebrity.
Bonnie's tough childhood of being teased and picked on for growing up poor ends at the age of 15 when she is married and divorced for the first time. A year later, she drops out of high school and is drawn towards the bright lights and allure of New York City. She desperately seeks fame and fantasizes about being a model or actress, but nothing pans out. By the time she is 21, Bonnie marries her first cousin and second husband, Paul Guerin, and soon after is pregnant with the first of their 3 children together. When
she was younger, she had taken many nude shots trying to infiltrate the business or become a model. She ended up having children and getting married, and that wasn't going to work.
To make ends meet, Bakley runs a series of ads passing herself off as a lonely single woman who needs companionship.
She found a way to make money. She had a mail order pornography business. She was selling these nude photos out of the backs of magazines that were offering similar types of things.
She was giving these guys a dream, and she was also supporting a lot of family.
Bakley's scams start to take off, and eventually she earns enough money to buy several homes in the Memphis area. By 1989, 33-year-old Bonnie Lee Bakley has already been divorced 4 times and has an arrest for drug possession on her rap sheet. Bonnie soon moves to Memphis with plans to meet and seduce aging rock star Jerry Lee Lewis. She follows him on tour, and the two meet several times. 3 years later, Bakley is pregnant and claims that the baby, a girl she names Jerry Lee, is the singer's daughter. DNA tests prove otherwise, and Bonnie leaves Jerry Lee with her ex-husband to head for California. There are plenty of celebrities to pursue in Los Angeles, and under the name Lee Bonnie, Bakley rents a massive Sunset Boulevard billboard to promote herself.
Bonnie apparently used numerous aliases over the years. When she first came to me, I signed her as Lee Bonnie Bakley, not Bonnie Lee.
Bonnie's address book is full of phone numbers and addresses of over a dozen celebrities, but she becomes particularly enamored with one, Christian Brando, son of actor Marlon Brando. Bonnie writes Brando while he is serving time for involuntary manslaughter and sends nude pictures of herself. When he is released in 1996, the two begin a relationship.
I think she started writing him, sending him pictures of herself, and he corresponded back. They just hit it off really good, and they were seeing each other frequently.
But fate intervenes one night in 1998 when Bakley meets Blake at a jazz club in the LA suburb of Studio City, California. The pair are drawn to each other and hit it off immediately. Bonnie doesn't know who Robert is at first, but one quick call to her sister and she knows he's rich and famous, and that's attractive enough.
She and Blake had slept together the first night that they met each other in the back seat of Blake's car behind the jazz club where they met.
Unbeknownst to both of them, this chance encounter will alter the rest of their lives. He and Bakley continue to see each other. Bakley routinely flies back and forth to Los Angeles to visit her men, Brando and Blake. She makes no secret of the dueling relationships, and Blake seems to be jealous of Brando, often referring to him as Golden Boy.
Robert Blake pretended he was jealous all the time. He would get really angry. You know, it was crazy, and she kind of liked it.
Bonnie never stays in LA long because she is on probation in Arkansas. She had been caught with multiple driver's licenses and Social Security cards used for her Lonely Heart scam.
Bonnie was going to pick up her mail out of state in Arkansas. When she had left, a police officer pulled her over. Bonnie went to get her driver's license out, and the officer seen many driver's licenses, so she got arrested for having all these IDs and credit cards.
In late 1999, Bakley finds out she is pregnant with her fourth child and doesn't know if it is Brando's or Blake's. Bonnie is more attracted to Brando, but Blake is more stable and seems to like her. Either way, both men have wealth and fame.
She was telling both men that they were the father of the baby. She was trying to decide which one she wanted to be married to. This Christian was younger and better looking. Robert was older, but he had more money.
So what you're saying is, if I keep it, you don't want to be around me.
That was all a lie. And not a little lie. That's a big lie. That's the kind of lie that God looks down and says, hey, wait a minute.
I think she went ahead and got herself pregnant, and then the reaction was venomous and cruel, and it was horrible. And it wasn't what she was expecting.
Blake accuses Bakley of lying to and entrapping him. He asks her to have an abortion. Though she refuses, she offers to give the child to her family. All she wants is to be with him, but he is uninterested. So Bonnie turns towards Christian Brando, telling him that the baby is his.
And that's when he started talking insane things. You're going to go have it aborted. If you're not, I'm gonna hire some people. They're going to hold you down. They're going to abort you. They're going to do this.
There were threats made. At one point in time, Bonnie sent me a letter saying that if something happens to me, I want you to know that Robert Blake is responsible for my death.
Hollywood star Robert Blake and Bonnie Lee Bakley have both endured terrible childhoods, and for whatever reason, fate has brought these two broken souls together. In June of 2000, Christian Shannon Brando is born in Arkansas. But once Robert Blake sees pictures, he insists on a paternity test, which confirms the baby is his.
Robert believed the child was his and wanted Bonnie to fly out immediately to DNA the baby so that everything would be set, they can get married.
Blake pleads for Bonnie and the baby to fly to LA, And though it violates her probation, she happily complies.
Really what it was just to steal the baby and have her arrested and sent back to Arkansas.
Blake takes Bonnie out to eat, leaving the baby with a nanny, but it's a setup. Blake has used his connections to arrange for 2 police officers to show up and inform Bakley that she has violated parole and must return to Arkansas immediately. Blake reassures her that the baby will be okay in his care, and she leaves.
Said they knew that she was out of state without permission and come with them immediately. She needed to get back on. Probation will be waiting for her.
While on the plane back, Bakley suspects she's been had. And she's right.
As soon as she got on the plane, she called me and said, I think I've been duped. And she flew home, reported to her probation officer, who said, well, I didn't even know you were gone.
It turns out the officers are really acquaintances of Blake's and not even officers at all. His Hollywood clout still affords him many favors.
He wanted to have custody of the baby once it was determined that he was the father. He didn't really want a woman of her character and her past to have any custodial rights.
Their tumultuous relationship is already riddled with mistrust, but now Bakley is furious, and for good reason. She threatens to file kidnapping charges against Blake.
She got permission from the courts to fly back out there and file a complaint against Mr. Blake for kidnapping. They started working out a deal. What can we do to avoid this? The deal was, well, we need to get married.
Blake begrudgingly promises to marry Bonnie if she drops the charges and agrees to a stringent temporary custody agreement. In the meantime, Rose will live with Blake's adult daughter, Dateline. Blake hires a top-notch attorney to craft a prenuptial agreement laying out the terms of the marriage and custody of the child. Bakley agrees to the terms, and her daughter is renamed Rose Lenore Sophia Blake.
The prenuptial agreement was the most unconscionable, one-sided document that I had ever seen in my career spanning decades.
From there, the judge and probation officer would allow her to go once a month to visit with Robert, to get married, and to visit with Rose, who was residing with Delina at the time.
Bonnie and Robert are married in November of 2000, and after her probation ends almost 6 months later, she takes up residence in a small guest house on Blake's property. It is hardly your typical Hollywood wedding, and the newlyweds never share the same home.
He tried to avoid it, but he resigned himself to the fact that that couldn't happen, and so that he was going to accept it. But he loved that little girl.
She wanted to be loved by a celebrity. And even if you couldn't be loved by the celebrity of getting married and having his last name.
Nevertheless, on May 4th, only days after moving in, Blake asks Bonnie to go to dinner with him. He brings his gun, which he's licensed to carry. He later claims he has the weapon out of concern for Bakley's safety that stems from her unscrupulous business. It is the last night of her life, and Bonnie has the sense that something is wrong.
She called me, I believe it was the day of the murder or possibly the day before, and said that, I think this is it. I think he's going to do it this time. The next thing I see on CNN was her being loaded into the ambulance.
Fast forward to later that night. Blake finds Bakley bloodied and left for dead in his vehicle.
Robbery Homicide Division is responsible for citywide murders of high-profile natures. Serial killers, gets a lot of media attention, VIPs, in this case sometimes celebrity cases. Some notable cases that would take a lot of time away from divisional detectives.
By the time lead detective Ron Ito and his partner, Detective Steve Aguchi, arrive, Bakley has already been taken by paramedics. The detectives notice the passenger side window of Blake's car is open and 2 bullet casings are found in the car.
It was reported to me that there was blood in the car, in the passenger side, an entire interior of the car actually, and the passenger side window was down.
For a celebrity case this sensitive, no expense is spared in following a strict, meticulous investigation protocol.
It was our decision to remove the dumpster that was in front of the car from the scene and then take it to some place that we could control pulling the rubbish out and examine what's in there.
Sean Stanek, the neighbor who called 911, asks the LAPD to check his home and make sure that Blake did not hide anything there, which strikes detectives as odd.
He thought it was such strange behavior by Mr. Blake. He asked the divisional detectives to go ahead and look around his living room.
Ito heads to the station, where he finds Blake with his entertainment attorney. Blake's hands have already been tested for gunshot residue, and he is out of sorts after hours of questioning. When asked to take a lie detector test, Blake refuses because he is, quote, too distraught.
He said he was tired and needed to get home, so we didn't push the fact.
Ito makes a mental note to himself. Why hasn't Blake asked how his wife was killed, or who might have done it? And why didn't he use her phone to call 911?
This time and age, if something happens, we go immediately to our cell phone and call 911. Instead of trying to rely on somebody to open a door, we thought that was kind of unusual.
My wife's bleeding, help!
As the investigation unfolds, Ito is not the only one with questions about Blake's response that night. Neighbors who witnessed Blake the night of the murder, including Sean Stanek, questioned his authenticity.
They told me that he was, like a crazy man. He was looking for somebody to help him or to find out something.
He was upset, obviously, because his wife was shot, but his demeanor apparently by other witnesses that were in the streets, it was unbelievable.
Blake stages a funeral for Bakley in Los Angeles, but her family refuses to fly out and stand next to the person they believe killed her.
Robert Blake was calling my home, and it was immediately after the incident. I didn't want to talk to him. I knew who killed her right away.
Days later, Detective Iguchi scores a huge find. He has recovered a Walter P38 9mm handgun from the crime scene dumpster, which is a rare World War II German officer's gun. It is later confirmed to be the murder weapon, but it's been covered in oil.
Detective Iguchi found the gun with the crime lab person. Luck would have it was the right caliber. That was the murder weapon. It was well coated with some type of oil.
Despite valiant efforts by the cops, no prints can be lifted from the gun, and even CSI tests on Blake are inconclusive. Ito and Iguchi receive the gunshot residue report, and it comes back scientifically inconclusive. In other words, Blake may or may not have fired the gun.
The gunshot test on Mr. Blake, I guess there was some present, but as far as the scientific community goes, it would be inconclusive.
He did not have the quantity of gunshot residue on him that anyone who fired that murder weapon would have.
The investigators are frustrated at every turn. There are no witnesses, no suspects, no prints on the murder weapon, and no motive. The story will only continue to get more strange, and police are hoping this does not turn out to be another public embarrassment like the O.J. Simpson trial. With very little hard evidence to go on, Detective Ron Ito focuses on television star Robert Blake's timeline, the night of his wife Bonnie Lee Bakley's murder. Detectives know when Blake left the restaurant because he paid by credit card at 9:23 p.m., and they know that Stanek called 911 at 9:40 p.m. What they cannot confirm is whether Blake returned to retrieve his gun from Vitello's, because not a single witness saw him. With no corroboration of Blake's alibi, cops have a new avenue to investigate.
We actually never could confirm that he returned and got this revolver as he said he did. We know he went back the third time, for sure. We know he was there to eat because of the credit card and everybody else's statement. But the second time is the time he said he came back at the gun, and it didn't happen.
I believe that Mr. Blake could have left his gun at Vitello's. How many of us haven't forgotten things in a restaurant and we have to return to get it?
It's unheard of. If somebody has a permit to carry a concealed firearm, they're conscious of it at all times. It's on them at all times. You don't leave it on the seat in a restaurant in North Hollywood.
It certainly helps to be rich when lawyering up. While detectives try to put a case together, Blake hires pricey attorney Harlan Braun and a private investigator, even though he has not yet been charged with a crime. Braun wastes no time trashing Bonnie Lee Bakley to the media, painting her as a celebrity stalker, thief, and con artist grifter.
The following morning, after Bonnie was murdered, already on the radio, I'm hearing them bash Bonnie. She was a grifter, she was a lowlife.
We don't have the luxury of picking our victim. She did things in ways to get money and may not have been really honest living. So Yeah, she came off as a shady character, but nobody deserves to get killed.
The things that they were saying that Bonnie was doing bad, yeah, she did a lot of it, but it was over a course of 40 years. Bonnie was a full person, and to just paint her with one brush of evilness is just not right. And that's what they did, and they did it daily. He had pre-hired an attorney, Harlan Braun, who had all these tapes ready to roll on the air the very next day.
Blake's fortune allows Harlan Braun and his team to sift through mountains of Bakley's personal possessions. He releases hours and hours of phone conversations she secretly taped, letters, and other such material.
My sister taped conversations her whole life. There were so many of them. They were all gone through.
She left enemies all over the United States, in my opinion. Elderly men that she had befriended who thought she was their wife, who signed insurance policies, who changed their will.
There's Blake trashing Bonnie, but there's also Blake having sex with a woman that he just met in the backseat of his car.
The case is still stuck until Hollywood stuntman Gary McClarty reaches out to police with a surprising story.
A person came into the North Hollywood station and said that he was solicited by Mr. Blake to kill his wife. And he told us a story of how it was supposed to be done and how he met Mr. Blake. Interesting enough.
Blake is furious at his attorney. The matter leads to Harlan Braun withdrawing from the case, and Blake hires attorney number 2, Tom Mesereau.
When I first met Mr. Blake, he was behind bars, he was kept isolated from other inmates, and he was having a miserable experience.
Mesereau is a Harvard-educated, media-savvy trial attorney famous for defending Mike Tyson and later Michael Jackson. Blake's war chest also affords him media consultants and supporting attorneys of similar caliber. And against good counsel for many, Blake foots the bill for Earl Caldwell's defense. Blake is able to secure a new interview, this time with friend Barbara Walters. It's the first time the public sees Blake with gray hair, making him appear more sympathetic.
Are you innocent? Of course I'm innocent.
Robert was very frail. He was proclaiming his innocence. He was very persuasive.
Mesereau immediately goes to work on a plan to get Blake the unattainable bail. The only way to get bail is to get the special circumstances allegation thrown out.
I told him that anything can happen in a criminal courtroom, and I would go for it.
During the preliminary hearing to determine viability of the case, Mesereau takes 3 weeks to aggressively cross-examine the state's witnesses on camera, something the prosecution does not see coming.
We were able to savage their witnesses, poke holes in the case, change public opinion about the case, and I don't think they ever recovered from it.
As far as this court's concerned, it's distinguishable on facts. I am going to set bail at $1.5 million.
The court throws out the special circumstances allegation, making Blake eligible for bail. And on March 13, 2003, after 11 months in jail, Blake is free on $1.5 million bail. It pays to be rich, because the $1.5 million price tag of freedom would still be unattainable to most people.
Mr. Blake obtained many advantages from the way this preliminary hearing went. When a defendant is out on bail, they have a much easier time.
The love fest between Blake and Mesereau doesn't last, and in February 2004, Mesereau leaves the case, citing irreconcilable differences.
Mr. Blake and I had a falling out that will remain confidential. After I withdrew, I was rather depressed about the situation.
With the trial date soon approaching, Blake needs to hire a new attorney fast. He hires San Francisco Bay Area attorney M. Gerald Schwartzbach.
Robert Blake was a very different person than the public persona. I liked him, and I believed him. I thought he was innocent.
Finally, on December 20th, 2004, opening statements are heard in the murder trial of the state of California versus Robert Blake. In opening statements, able prosecutor Shelley Samuels lays out her motive. Blake decided to end his loveless marriage, and when he failed to enlist someone to kill his wife, he made the murder look like a senseless street crime with the help of Earl Caldwell. The defense claims Blake is an innocent scapegoat, and the state has a vendetta with circumstantial and fabricated evidence. The media loves the real-life soap opera.
Mr. Blake was portrayed by Miss Samuels as being an angry man, jilted by a small-time grifter, and that he wanted to get even with her and get rid of her.
The police tried to twist love of the little girl into hate of Bonnie. They tried to twist love into motive to kill.
I believe Robert Blake wanted to kill my sister. I think it was a challenge. I think that she ticked him off in ways nobody else had.
Samuel sets the murder scene, dismissing the idea of a robbery and focusing on the timeline and Blake's alibi.
A 911 call was later made. The time span was, I believe it was less than 10 minutes. Given that time, it was highly unlikely that he could have made 3 trips.
Robert Blake's alibi is just the most bizarre, craziest, smelliest alibi that I've ever heard.
Samuels also argues that for someone who claimed to fear for Bakley's safety, Blake had no problem leaving Bakley by herself on a dimly lit street blocks away. He didn't even call 911 or stay with her while she sat dying in the car.
We found out that Bonnie Lee, she was always on the phone. So we knew she had a cell phone. And so if Mr. Blake didn't have one, she would have one.
The people who knew him there, the owners and wait staff, said he looked absolutely distraught. One waitress said he looked like he had aged 50 years. His conduct was completely consistent with innocence. but they tried to turn it into guilt.
Schwartzbach quickly diverts attention to the lack of and mishandling of DNA evidence tying Blake to the murder weapon.
They didn't put any of the evidence inside an evidence bag. There could have been cross-contamination.
He also focuses on the pool of people who had reason to be angry with Bakley.
All those letters we found, there was nothing in there that somebody was out to kill her.
They didn't look for any other culprits. They didn't carefully examine the legions of men and their families that Bonnie Bakley had violated and stolen from. They wanted to see a celebrity be convicted.
The defense claims that without anything more than circumstantial evidence, these are just theories from people who decided Blake was guilty before they had cause, because he was a celebrity.
The defense will tell you, well, you focused on my client right away. Well, yeah, we did, but we focused on everybody else too. And then we start eliminating the others as we go. And then at the end, we should have the right suspect.
In my judgment, Detective Ito had no interest in anything other than what he thought could convict Robert Blake.
The prosecution presents trace evidence of gunshot residue on Blake's hand and shirt, but a forensic expert testifies that the minuscule amount of residue on Blake's hand may have come from his own gun.
When the murder weapon was test fired under scientific conditions, it produced 537 particles of gunshot residue on the hand of the shooter. He had no gunshot residue on his hands.
Stymied but not defeated, the state introduces their key witnesses, stuntmen Gary McClarty and Ron Duffy Hambleton. Both witnesses testify that Blake solicited them separately to kill Bakley months before the crime occurred, even hatching out escape routes.
Our key witnesses had background. They had pasts that weren't as great. You have to corroborate everything this guy said, and we were able to corroborate the phone card.
Blake made dozens of calls to Duffy and McClarty with the cards, but he used his home phone to place the calls, making them traceable. The last call made to Hambleton was placed the morning of the murder.
He used it from his house phone. If he used it on a payphone, it would just come back to a card, that payphone, and that's it.
The defense is merciless on McClarty, hammering on the discrepancies in his testimony. And during an intense cross-examination, the jury gleans that McClarty was a habitual drug user who had recently suffered cocaine-induced psychosis.
Gary McClarty was admitted to a psychiatric hospital before the trial, suffering from significant hallucinations.
Next up is Ron Duffy Hambleton. His story also falls apart under withering cross-examination, and he too has a record of petty crimes, drugs, hallucinations, and gun charges. A bad combination already, but especially for a witness in a murder case.
Duffy Hambleton, we found witnesses and were able to prove that he manufactured and used methamphetamine and that he suffered significant hallucinations.
The witnesses that were presented were drug addicts. One witness mentioned that he was going to lie on the stand. We just couldn't believe him.
What does a meth addict do? Just show up and make up a story about Robert Blake called me and said something about, I'll pay you to kill my wife? That doesn't come out of thin air.
Thanks to Blake's PR machine and fame, Bonnie has been vilified publicly following her murder. Now, with unstable witnesses and little direct evidence, prosecutors have an uphill battle in court. Were the witnesses lying, and was Blake really innocent? A jury would soon decide, but neither party would come out unscathed.
To try and pass this off to Bonnie as she created it and this was destined to happen because of who she was, that's unfair.
She knew he was going to kill her or wanted to kill her, but I think she just thought she could handle it. He told her repeatedly, I got a bullet with your name on it. Don't worry, honey. It's coming.
Neither Blake nor Caldwell decide to testify, and at last, both sides give closing arguments.
There's nothing that Bonnie did in her lifetime that justified her having been murdered.
It's just a shame that she didn't get any equal time of being a good person, and Robert Blake didn't get any time of being the bad person that he is. He was the guy who was being charged as her murderer, and yet everybody felt sorry for him.
There's no doubt in my mind who killed Bonnie Bakley. And we accused Mr. Blake of it, and we presented our evidence that we believe that he did it.
Schwartzbach's closing statements last 2 days. He emphasizes to the jury what the defense has said all along. They have proven that the prosecution cannot put the gun in Blake's hand.
Ms. Bakley was known as a con artist. We thought it's possible that a jilted person that Ms. Bakley sent a letter to may have been coming after her.
With plenty to ponder, the jury starts deliberating on March 4th, 2005. 12 days later, on March 17th, they return with the verdict. And what's about to come will have a great effect on him personally and financially. The murder of Bonnie Lee Bakley has proven to be just as polarizing as the two parties involved. Prosecutors have painted actor Robert Blake as a bitter, eccentric millionaire who plotted getting rid of his new wife and almost got away with it. He allegedly made plans with potential hitmen, kidnapped his own baby, wanted to set Bonnie up to send her back to jail, and when all of that failed, murdered her in cold blood.
Even if he said he hated her, she still believed it was just talk. Got the baby, he didn't have to deal with her anymore. He could have won that child in the court of law. He didn't want to do it that way.
Bakley has been dragged through the mud and vilified as well. Her past transgressions have been made fodder for the media and jurors, almost insinuating she got what she deserved. Regardless, a verdict has been rendered, almost 4 years after the murder, and tensions run high.
The celebrities typically can hire lawyers, investigators, paralegals, consultants, experts that others cannot hire. But by the same token, the prosecuting authorities will throw lawyers and experts and investigators and police departments and law enforcement agencies at them in a way that they would never throw at anybody else. So I think celebrities don't dominate the playing field, they level it.
They have an enormous advantage because of their celebrity, and certainly the money helps. They control the media.
In my judgment, that just fed into the perception that, oh, here's a rich celebrity who's going to buy his way out of a murder that he committed.
The clerk reads the verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Robert Blake, not guilty of the crime of first-degree murder of Bonnie Lee Bakley.
Blake is found not guilty on the count of murder and 1 count of solicitation. The jury is deadlocked on the 2nd count of solicitation. Charges are later dropped. Robert Blake is now a free man and ecstatic.
His head fell to the counsel table with his arms stretched out, then he and I embraced.
Robert Blake being acquitted was absolutely due to his fame and fortune. Money goes a long way, and so does fame.
The jurors, we all felt that Mr. Blake might have had something to do with Miss Bakley's demise, but we couldn't place him at fault. I don't think celebrity played any role in it.
The verdict is especially frustrating for detectives Ito and Iguchi, who have no doubt that Blake got away with murder, and for DA Steve Cooley, who uncharacteristically calls out the jury publicly for being, quote, incredibly stupid.
Based on the evidence, she should have been convicted. I think it's the celebrity factor. I don't think they understood what circumstantial evidence was.
When Mr. Cooley called us stupid, that was very offensive. He never apologized to us, and I don't remember seeing him inside the courtroom the entire time.
Schwartzbach holds an impromptu press conference on the courthouse steps with Blake by his side.
He had this electronic monitoring device on his ankle for 2 years, and there was this photograph that went around the world of him kissing me on the cheek and me holding that ankle monitoring device, which is on the wall of my office.
The jurors got to keep our badges, and we each signed everyone's badges, so we have all our badges with everyone's signature, including the judge.
Blake has spent most of his fortune, over $10 million, on his defense. The money went to lawyers, high-priced investigators, jury and media consultants, expert witnesses, and colossal bills for his and Caldwell's bail.
If you're quite wealthy, whatever your lawyer can identify as a need can be obtained. We had a great jury consultant. We had great investigators. We had the funds to have a complete database collected.
Bonnie's family sues the actor in civil court, where he is found responsible for her death. Blake is ordered to pay $30 million to her family. It is later reduced to $15 million. Finally, Bonnie's family feels that they've gotten a measure of justice and can begin to clear her name.
It didn't help my head. I mean, she's still dead. He's out a little bit of money. Rose doesn't have a mother or a father, and nothing good came of it.
Today, Blake claims poverty and hides from publicity, but he was famous and rich when it mattered, and his life hung in the balance.
When you charge a celebrity with a crime, you have a major uphill battle.
If you go back in the history of LA, and you look at how many celebrities we put behind bars, and I think it's all because of the wow factor.
Whether it was Blake's wealth and fame that helped him get off, we will never know. Perhaps it was the lack of physical evidence, or that police just had the wrong guy.